All right, it is time to review the second part of Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon series on Netflix. These are I've already done the first one. This is the second one, Scargiver, and this is the regular edition, not the extended edition. I'm going to be coming back and watching the extended editions of both of these versions, the director's cut, and giving reviews on those, as well as sort of an overall thoughts at the end of the entire expose. But for now, spoiler alert, I'm going to spoil all the things for the second episode on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, pause, go away, watch it, come back. And a further note before we go any further, if you're someone who really disliked it, you hate Zack Snyder, you just want to rip this film apart, I'm going to critique it for sure. But I am a Zack Snyder fan, so I like his films, flaws and all. So we're going to be viewing this film within the context of I liked it, but it had flaws. If you're someone who just wants to come here and rant and be a dick about how you hate Zack Snyder and this film sucked and all that stuff, please just leave your dislike, move on about your day, because I don't need you here just being a dick in the comments, right? We're here to celebrate fun films, and this was a fun film at the end of the day. Now, I get to watch things through the lens of my wife, who is not a hardcore sci-fi and fantasy nerd, while I am. So when I sit down and watch things like this, it's always fun to see my reviews tempered by her expectations and experiences as a viewer, because they are much different than my expectations and experiences as a viewer. Right out of the gate, I would say I would give this probably a 6 or 7 out of 10. It was not as good as the first one, I felt. There were definitely things that felt rushed along the way, and I have to wonder how much of this is a condensed editing format so that they can come out with the director's cut later on, which has the full story and all the backstories of all the characters and everything else. Because there was moments like, for example, where they're giving these speeches around the table before the battle, and they're all sort of like remembering things that are from their past about why they hate the evil empire, right? And I feel like there was a ton left on the cutting room floor here because we only got snippets of each character. And it's like, if they went to the effort to create all these sets and the costume designs and everything else for these backstories, you know that there's more of that that's going to come out in the extended edition, the director's cut. And that's one of the areas where I know some people have complained about the pacing in this film, is because there is a lot of exposition. There's a lot of characters just explaining backgrounds, talking about their feelings, and for people who just wanted action, 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 yeah. Zack Snyder is also well known for his slow-mo shots, and there are tons of those here. It's just as much as J.J. Abrams with the lens flares. Every director has their sort of signature thing that they do. There's lots of that here. So if those kind of things are things you don't like, then I'm sorry, but at the same time, it's Zack Snyder. Like, that's just part of what he does. I accept that from him as a filmmaker. Now, what I'm really interested in here is, what does this look like against the scope of the director's cut? Because again, looking back at this was definitely, as a follow-up to the first film, we got a lot of establishment of story and everything else in the first film. And then in this one, it was like, oh, the big baddie's back because resurrection. And it's like, well, that kind of takes away the impact of the first half. You understand why he's back. Great. There could have been a little bit more explanation about that technology. Maybe there is in the director's cut. I don't know. But it did feel very much like the second film was sort of a generic revenge tropey thing where you get the big bad guy coming back to try to take care of the girl who took care of him in the first place. But then you have all the revelations of who she is and her revealing to everybody who she is, and the discussions around that, and finally just embracing her fate. And there is a sort of, I don't want to say chosen one element to this, but we do definitely get lots of people sacrificing their lives so that we can get the ending with the happy person. It's not really happy per se, but ultimately the good guys do win, but at great cost. And that's where I think this, for me, giving it a 6 out of 10. I loved the cinematography. I love the details that went into the costuming. I love the fact that the set they built in the valley where they planted all the wheat and everything else, that was incredibly well done with the way they used that and shot it chronologically, so that we actually get to see these pristine fields that then get destroyed in fire, and the buildings and everything else. And all that was very well done. But the movie actually did suffer from pacing issues. There was a lot of exposition. that felt weird in a film that was wrapping up storylines, where we're just getting characters talking about things, talking about things, talking about things. It's like, okay, but how does that have anything to do with the story of the big bad guy coming here? It kind of felt like overall, and again, the context of this will be when I watch the director's cut to know what was left on the cutting room floor. This leaves you feeling as if it's less about the Empire being a big nasty bad guy, which they're definitely, they sound like they're big nasty bad guys, but it was more about this guy going off the book, this crazy lieutenant or whatever he was. I want my revenge because she shot me in the chest and took me out, and also I want the reward for bringing her in. Like all of that was here, but then we get a cliffhanger ending where it's like, oh, the princess is still alive and the robot's here and he's going to help her as they decide how they're going to go rescue the princess. And it's like, it just leaves you with such a sort of, wait, so this is all a build up to something that might come next based on how this is all going to play out? Or are we going to get to meet the princess in the end of the director's cut? I don't know. But that's the thing where we sort of had this weird juxtaposition of really cool action sequences and lots of action. There were some great shots with the ships that they were using too. When the dreadnought comes into the atmosphere, oh, that was good. And some of the like when she's going into flight underneath the waterfall and everything. Like there were some really cool shots with the ships here. So really great VFX overall. I was very happy with I think the VFX team did a great job here, as did the set decorators, the set designers. All the set stuff was amazing. The cinematography, like I said, the music was okay. The writing, again, the cliffhanger ending was something I didn't really buy into for the Netflix version. Like it was like, if you're gonna leave that kind of a cliffhanger ending, then we need to know that there's actually a third film coming, because otherwise it just feels kind of cheesy. Which is why, again, 6 out of 10 instead of like a 7 out of 10 or something. Like I said, the first film was better than this one. In the scope of the two together, it's still part of an overarching story that's still being told as I watch through the director's cuts. So in this case, I'd say the way I initially feel about this film is that it felt kind of like there's some core elements of Zack Snyder there, which is why I enjoy it overall. It was a pleasurable experience. I saw a lot of things that I like, some tropey things that I don't mind, great VFX, a fun little action adventure film that was a couple hours of our time. Nothing wrong with that. I think 6 out of 10 is a fair score, but it's not as good as some of his previous work. When you look at things like I really loved his Watchmen film, of course 300, Dawn of the Dead stuff, but it's still a solid piece overall, and I can't wait to see what comes next. But I really do need to know if there's going to be a third one now because of this cliffhanger ending, or if that's resolved in the director's cut. So that's my take on the initial version that's out on Netflix right now. I think Cris, she's not here right now, but I'm pretty sure she said it was an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10 for her. But she has different expectations, like I said at the beginning, than I do for sci-fi films. So overall, another great Zack Snyder film that for me to enjoy in the repertoire. Not one of his bests, not one of his worsts. Can't wait to see more. Until next time, everybody, stay safe. Happy viewing.